There were people's life on the line. Chris knew that if he doesn't do everything right, the blood of these people will be on his hands for the rest of his life. In his book, Chris Voss shares the story how he not just managed to free these people without a harm, but being able to diffuse the situation so much that the guy who kept these people hostage, the hostage keeper, called him from prison and said, "I hope that you got a promotion, because, that day really meant a lot to me." Now, I don't know about you, but the question in my head, how one goes from risking a complete massacre to complete respect between enemies. There is a myth about communication, and you might watching this video because you want to be a better communicator. Maybe you had always a hard time with small talk, or you want to improve your relationship, or want to have better sales, or want to get your ideas, your mission across better. But there is something in communication that's rarely talked about, is that in the bulk of it, communication is not about speaking. There is the saying that you have 2 ears and 1 mouth and you should use it in the same proportion. Generally, it's a really good advice. It's a start, and that's what we are talking about. But today I want to explain in a little bit more depth why and how to be a better communicator. I do believe that by learning this one skill, you can be better of maybe 80% of the people. So if you would ask me, what is the one skill that would make you a better communicator? I would say this. Everyone wants to be heard and understood. Attention is one way of expressing love. It's not a coincidence that kids do everything, even mischief, just to get attention. So in a way, this person who kept hostage, that's what Chris wrote, that it turned out that what he really wanted, and most of these people, what they really want, is that they have this anger inside and they want to be heard, they want to be understood. Now think about it. If you want to improve your relationship, if you want to build better rapport, if you want to make better sales or communicate your mission better, what is the number one skill you need? It's listening. It's being able to listen to the other person, to understand what do they want, what do they need, what is in them. If you want to create a product, if you want to build your business, the number one thing you need is to understand the need, understand what the other person wants. If you want to create a great relationship, again, what is the number one skill? You have to understand the other person, because once you learn listening, you'll be able to empathize, you'll be able to understand, and because of that, you'll be able to communicate and influence much, much better. In order to give you a framework of listening, I will share with you the 4 levels of listening. The first level of listening, when you're listening for the pause, you're basically just waiting for your time to interject. You're waiting for that second that the other person stops speaking, takes a breath, and you just drop in what you think. The second level is when you're waiting for your turn. Now you have a level of respect that you're waiting for a turn, but you don't really listen what the other person says. You still just saying what you think. And often what we do is that we either say, yeah, a similar thing happened with me, and you basically talk about yourself, or you give advice, you give some sort of judgment. But there is no empathy, there is no connection there. All you do, you learn that you should wait for your turn, but you're still not really putting the attention, the spotlight on the other person. The third level of listening is the reflective listening. Now you're waiting for your turn, and now you actually listen. You actually listen what the other person says, and you repeat it back. You even reframe it. You interject something that's not just about you, but something that makes you relate to the other person. On this level, you are able to take the perspective of the other person, and you are able to listen and understand what's going on the other side. Now, the fourth level of listening is the empathetic listening. Here we truly listen, and we listen for a deeper meaning as well. We listen for the meaning and for the feeling behind the words, and we might even voice it. So when someone talks about something, never ever anyone says anything without a reason. And the reason is always some sort of emotional reason. Now, it could be to simply experience good emotions by sharing. It could be an underlying message, communicating some sort of need, or communicating some sort of emotion, some sort of state. Now, on level 4, you are able to understand, listen, and even voice the underlying emotion, the underlying message. You're also able to listen inside and feel this subtle feedback to the other person. The beauty of this level is that we human beings are multi-layered, and our cognitive function is just one layer out of the many. We are social beings, and we have highly effective systems evolved over evolution, millions and billions of years, that pick up subtle cues, subtle sensations, things that happening in a conversation. On level 4, you are able to listening to these cues, and very often when the other person, for example, feels something, very often you feel the same thing inside your body. We don't always have to contribute to the conversation actively. Think back to a moment when you had some sort of frustration. Maybe you had a clench in your stomach or in your throat. Maybe you were anxious about something and you couldn't know what to do with it. The best you could know is to express it, is to talk about it. What happens when someone shares an advice to you right there? Do you feel like you were heard? Do you feel like you were able to express? If you want to really diffuse the underlying tension, you have to stay with that tension and allow it to happen. And maybe this time you're not going to give an advice. Maybe this time you're not going to defend yourself. Maybe this time you will just let that thing land and stay there. And you just stay with it. And you stay with the other person in the midst of this frustration. Sometimes that's just saying, I understand it's hard. Sometimes voicing, it seems like you're having a hard time. Sometimes voicing, it seems like you are angry. These voicings can help the other person to feel acknowledged for what they feel. This doesn't mean that you necessarily agree with their point, but you can still acknowledge their point. And there is a big difference. If you really want to be a better communicator, learn all the speaking tricks, learn everything, that's fine. But in my opinion, what can make anyone better than most of the communicators is actually not speaking, but listening. Going up the ladder and learn how not to speak, how to shut your mouth and put the spotlight on the other person. Being able to be grounded and present in with whatever the other person presents there. And really being able to take the other person's perspective and just put your perspective aside for a while. If you gained any value out of this video, share, like, subscribe, and ring the bell notification button. Also, jump onto the next video. We can grow together, and remember, you are innately whole.